I do have a number of guests, a batch of guests, to use Abra's term. Let me begin by bringing in Clotilde Angelucci. She's acting project lead at Youth Capital, and as the name suggests, she's in the business of looking at the issue of youth. Thank you so much, Clotilde, for joining us. So my question to you is, of course, there is a concern around the high unemployment rate. We got the latest stats on unemployment, 32.9%, the official number, but much higher for youth unemployment, around 60% or so. What is it that you're hoping will come out of today's budget that speaks to interventions in dealing with this matter?
Thank you. So we've seen that according to the latest stats, the expanded definition of unemployment sees that 1 in 2 young people between the ages of 15 and 34 are unemployed. So we're really hoping as Youth Capital that this budget is used as a tool to really grow the economy in an inclusive manner. We've seen, and actually to National Treasury's admissions, that cuts in spending have not really benefited the citizens of South Africa. And we've got a special interest in looking at public employment programs. We've seen that work experience is a hurdle for young people. We've seen that in the latest stats, 6 in 10 unemployed young people have never had formal work experience, and we've seen a decrease in the formal employment rate. So we definitely need to provide opportunities for young people to gain their first work experience, but also ensure that once they leave this first work experience, there are touch points into a growing economy, not an economy that is restricting.
What are the lessons that you think can be drawn from the fact that we're now calling this particular budget iteration budget point 3, because obviously there was no consultation before, or limited consultation in terms of what National Treasury was going to put forward in terms of raising revenue. What do you think lessons have been learned, and also what sort of inputs were made by civil society in this regard? Because we've talked about it as if it was a political coup for those politicians who voted against VAT, but it wasn't just the politicians who voted against it, was it?
So Youth Capital is a member of a coalition called the Budget Justice Coalition that advocates for a pro-poor and a pro-rights approach to the budget. And we've seen like an increase in public participation. So the Finance Committee that receives feedback on the fiscal framework received this year an unprecedented number of 52 submissions following the budget, 50 of which were against the VAT increase. So it's been really amazing to see the participation from civil society and just ordinary South Africans, because this budget has been branded as a diplomacy tool for the new GNU, but we must remember that ultimately the budget is a tool to deliver prosperity to South Africans. So it's really important to make sure that young people's needs or people's needs are heard in the budget and delivered for.
Absolutely. Clotilde, I'm going to ask you to head out of shot, and thank you very much for your insights there. I am joined by my next guest, Zwelibanzi Mazia. He's the Chief Operations Officer at Sovereign Africa Ratings. He's an important guest for us in the sense that, of course, the ratings agencies will be looking very closely at the budget, looking at ratios like your debt to GDP, your budget deficit, and so on, and seeing that there are lots of ideas around boosting economic growth, which has been the elephant in the room for the South African economy. Thank you so much, Zweli, for speaking to us. So last Friday, S&P ratings, or S&P Global, they came out with the ratings for South Africa, keeping everything unchanged in terms of their outlook, a positive outlook. It was a bit of weird timing, given the fact that obviously today is the day that National Treasury is going to give us a sense of their revisions around economic growth, revenue, expenditure, and so on. But what is it that you're going to be looking at very closely coming out of the budget? What are you hoping to see?
Well, we're hoping to see the continued commitment by the National Treasury to ensure that the debt to GDP ratio is managed properly. And also, we are quite happy when it comes to the upholding of our Constitution and following due process, especially as it pertains to the VAT hike. It's a good thing, to have different opinions regarding this, because an increase in VAT will definitely hamper the economic growth, which is already kind of low.
In terms of the debt to GDP, do you believe that given the many demands on the fiscus, that National Treasury will indeed be able to hold the line, especially because it looks almost near impossible for them to be able to raise revenue through tax increases?
Yeah, well, what we've noted during the 2024 financial year, we saw the South African Revenue Services overshooting their target. And we are hoping that continues to happen. We've seen investments being made towards the revenue service, and hoping that what was not gathered via the VAT can also be found through just revenue collection.
Just one last thing, as sovereign Africans, as sovereign Africa ratings, you've always said that you have a slightly different perspective to your more traditional ratings agencies. You're an African-based rating agency, and therefore your perspective is different. What is it specifically that you will be looking at, apart from budget deficit ratios and so on? What specifically will you be looking at that would favor or not favor South Africa?
We will be looking at the investment strategies that will be implemented, specifically for asset-generating assets, looking at not only South Africa, but African countries in general. There's an opportunity through beneficiation of natural resources, and this could open up more industries via the investment into the secondary sector of the market.
All right, Zwelibanzi, thank you very much for your time and insights there. That was Zwelibanzi Mazia. He's the Chief Operations Officer at Sovereign Africa Ratings.